I'm pretending right now that I'm listening to the theme song for the first time in a while. It'll actually be added in post, but it'll probably be playing underneath what I'm saying right now. It's been a little while since we've recorded one of these, like 3 or 4 weeks, right?
Yeah.
I think almost 6 weeks.
We all had
But we're back.
Busy stuff to do.
We're back. I'm avoiding studying for finals, but we're here, Loose Canons, to discuss a very recent movie, 2013's Catching Fire, sequel to The Hunger Games, starring Jennifer Lawrence, directed by Francis Lawrence.
No relation.
No relation. So, where do you guys want to begin?
Well, I love this movie. I was really surprised when I watched the first Hunger Games by how much I loved that one. Because I was kind of skeptical of all the craziness that's been going on, all the love for these movies. And when I watched it, I was like, oh, these are actually like really genuine movies. There's a good reason why people like them. Usually when movies blow up like that, you're like, oh, well, maybe there's some like crappy reason that they like them. But no, these are good movies. These are genuinely good movies. And especially I thought this one was even more powerful than the first one. There were a couple of minutes where I started teary-eyed, actually pretty early in the film. What did y'all think?
I would say that this one was, for me, so much better than the first one that I almost liked it, but I still didn't quite like it. It was alright. Like, I thought it was alright. Like, I almost convinced myself that I liked it because I hated the first movie so much that, and this was such like a huge improvement to me that I was almost on board, but there were still a few things that bothered me that kept me from like fully embracing this one.
I really like both of the movies.
I figured as much.
Can't stop, won't stop.
So yeah, do we want to start with like what exactly you did and did not like?
Well, the things that I liked more in this movie than I liked in the last movie were the casting. One of the biggest problems I had with the first movie is that other than Jennifer Lawrence is Katniss, almost every single other role I don't like. I don't really like Hutcherson as Peeta. I don't really like Thor's brother as Gale. I don't really like Donald Sutherland as the president.
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson and Lenny Kravitz are probably, and Elizabeth Banks are the least offensive of the bad casting, in my opinion, from the first one. Second one, pretty much everybody is spot on. I thought Jenna Malone was great as, I can't remember her name, the crazy one.
Joanna.
With the axe.
Yeah,
Joanna. Why does she have a normal name? Everyone else is like Plutarch and...
Yeah.
I thought, I know Basil doesn't like him, but I thought Philip Seymour Hoffman was a perfect choice for Plutarch. I thought using kind of a no name for Finnick was a good choice. He's one of my favorite characters in the book, and I'm glad that they didn't screw him up. Oh, and Nuts and Bolt, Amanda Plummer and Jeffrey Wright were great, perfect choices for those two.
Yeah, I like Jeffrey Wright a lot.
So that was a big step forward from the first one. And I also thought, Patrick pointed out, it probably had something to do with this one having a lot bigger budget. But the Hunger Games themselves were much better in this one. In the first one, what I liked about the movie so much was everything that happened before the Hunger Games. Once the Hunger Games started, it was okay at best. But in this one, the Hunger Games were actually, in spite of the fact that they're really not that important in the book, way more interesting than the first movie and than the book, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I thought that the second book sort of loses a lot of steam once the Hunger Games actually start. It feels like they're kind of shoehorned in, but they handled it pretty well in the movie.
So,
and
I'm probably going to talk about the books a lot, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have actually not read any of the books, so I'm coming from an outside perspective, just seeing the movies. And I thought, like, I guess my favorite thing about this one was that I felt like they really made a good connection to all the people, especially the people that Katniss sort of bonded with in the first one. Like, when they go back to, I think it's District 11 is the one where Rue was from.
Yes.
That scene was kind of devastating when they go back and the people are giving her the the like 3-finger salute, doing the Mockingjay call and everything, and she actually gets up there and goes off script and says what she feels, and then things kind of get out of hand from there. I thought that was a really powerful scene, and I was like, wow, they're really sticking the dagger in kind of early here. But I thought her that and her response later when they paint the big mural of Rue on the floor, or I guess it's supposed to look like Rue, it's not necessarily supposed to be her, but they paint it on the floor, which is supposed to go in and charm the donors or whatever. She just makes that dummy look.
They're showing their talents.
Yeah.
And that was Peeta's talent is painting.
Oh, did he do that?
Yes, that was Peeta.
Oh, okay. So he did that on purpose to.
Yeah.
To get her
to get her riled up. Okay, I thought that was something that they put there to like throw her off or something.
No,
I didn't really understand what was going on there, but no, I liked her response to that. To make the dummy of the last game master and hang it from the ceiling.
What's his name?
What was his name? I can't remember his name now. Oh yeah, it was Firebeard.
Wes Bentley, the previous game maker that she made the hanging effigy of.
Seneca Crane.
Seneca, that's it.
Yeah. In the books, you never know how he died, so she's just guessing with the hanging of the effigy. In the movie, she's guessing wrong because he ate those poison berries.
Still gets the point across.
It's made explicit in the first one.
Also, it wouldn't be as effective a visual statement to just like rub something on his lips.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just like these movies and these books. I think for the young adult world that they get a lot of things right that I agree with, that I'm just happy to see being put out there. Just in general, in both movies, sort of showing, I don't know, expectations for young women and how Katniss pushes against those expectations and rules. Not quite as strong in the movies as it is in the books, but still there, and I still like it. I like that, her goal in the second Hunger Games is to save Peeta, and how much that's changed from her, the first Hunger Games, where it was to survive, and how sort of, Peeta has, his compassion has helped her change from being, like a pure hunter, I guess, is what she is at the start of the first
movie.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say it, because it was both.
All right. Yeah, I think, going back a little bit, one of the things that I liked a lot better was just the way it was shot. Like, for me, one of the things that bothered me the most about the first movie was I just hated the choice that Gary Ross made to shoot it with like the sort of semi documentarian style of like very shaky camera with like weird zooms and stuff, and I found it really distracting to look at, and I thought that Francis Lawrence pulled back a little bit on that. Like, it's still sort of like there's a handheld feel to a lot of the shots, but it's not so distracting for me. It was a little smoother.
Yeah, I noticed that in the first one it did feel like this was a bit lower budget than most big Hollywood movies, because you can kind of tell in some places you were like, oh, okay, well, they're not really using normal Hollywood tricks here to sort of move the camera around. A lot of it's like handheld work, it's kind of shaky, it's some of the special effects don't quite look up to snuff, and in this one you can definitely tell the polish was there, the sheen was there. They had that little bit of extra work from the effects department, a little bit of extra work from the camera crew and the lighting and everything. Because in the first one I felt like sometimes it looked a little too dark in some of the scenes, and in this one everything looked, especially when they were out in the woods, like during the Hunger Games. And in this one, I felt like it looked, spot on all the time, even when they were in the forest or in the jungly area. I also thought that the way the game was set up in this one was much more inventive than the first one. The first one was just kind of like, they're out there, they'll deal with stuff, maybe,
Yeah, they're just in the woods.
Yeah,
it's like survival with killing.
Yeah, she drops hornets on people at one point, but there was never really anything as inventive as the terrain sort of trying to kill people in this one like that. I know they have like the big dogs at the end of the first one, but I don't know if there was more. Was there more of that in the book? More of the terrain actually being used in the first one? So that
was the weird fireball thing. That was in the movie too, though.
No, every 25 years, the Hunger Games is supposed to be more special than the other ones.
Okay, so
this one's intentionally a bigger spectacle than.
Okay, so it's supposed to be
to celebrate 75 years of murdering children.
Yeah. In the book, in this one, they spend some time like watching older Hunger Games. And nothing like this is brought up, so I think this one is unique from the other ones. Because then, the setup is, it's former victors coming to play in this Hunger Games. So Katniss and Peeta watch the old Hunger Games that featured the other victors to study them. In the book, to cut that out in the movie, understandably, because it's hard to show someone watching a video in an interesting way. It does mean that they sadly cut out something, which is Haymitch's backstory, because Katniss can't sleep one night and decides to watch Haymitch's Hunger Games highlights. And you get to find out, kind of why Haymitch is the way he is and stuff like that. And that was sadly cut from the movie.
I thought Woody Harrelson, for me, made the biggest jump in terms of, I don't know, in the first movie, I really hated the way that he portrayed him, and I thought that he was actually, for me at least, one of the strongest acting points in the second movie. I thought that he toned back the woodiness a little bit in a way that I liked.
Would you say that the woody notes gave you a dope mouthfeel? Yeah, I don't know if I noticed his acting that much. I noticed Elizabeth Banks a lot. They sort of made her arc, which is a smaller part of the book, a little more to the forefront. There's a growing tension, I guess, in the Capitol in the book, as the people who've sort of enjoyed the Hunger Games without reservation start to question the Capitol when they bring former victors. Apparently they're okay with killing children, but not okay with killing the famous children that they like. And that spread across sort of all sorts of different people, and I guess they just sort of put that entire storyline in I can't remember her character's name, but Elizabeth Banks' character.
Edie?
Essie.
Yeah. So she's given that scene where she's reading the names. She knows what the names are going to be, and she's really upset about it, which I thought was fine. I wish it could have been more subtle, but I understand it's a movie. They don't have the ability to do this over a huge amount of time.
Yeah, and I thought that one thing I will say, because you asked me about this after the movie, whether or not I was really affected by Cinna dying, and I was basically well, not that much, because I kind of saw it coming, because the movie did really telegraph that. It was as soon as Katniss, it reveals the winged dress, they do a zoom in on
Mockingjay.
He's just, the Mockingjay, and he's just sitting there yeah. And they do that zoom in on him, and you see the president looking at him really angrily, and I was that's gonna die now. That's what that means in cinematic terms. Something bad's gonna happen there now.
In the books, everything is from Katniss's perspective. So
so it must have been more of a shock there.
The only time that we ever get to see President Snow, I think at all, in the first two books, is when he shows up in that scene at the beginning at her home to tell her to,
make people happy.
Yeah, and at the end of the first one, when he gives her there's in the book, I don't remember if this was in the movie, I don't think it was, but if I remember this correctly, in the book, there's a crown or something that they give the victor, and instead of having two, they just give it to Katniss. They don't give one to Peeta.
Forgot about
she meets
that.
him then.
Right.
Those are the only two scenes that the president is in the first two books.
Isn't he in the ball thing, or no?
Oh, yeah.
But yes, he does have a smaller part. It's more implied that he's in Katniss's mind a lot. And I guess the only way to visualize that is actually give him more screen time to make him scarier.
I honestly think that after they cast Donald Sutherland, that he pushed to get more screen time.
Probably. As a part of a deal for doing the movie for relatively low money. I could see that. Definitely seems like that type of human being.
Especially in the first movie, there's that really useless scene where he's trimming the plants with Seneca, and he's like giving advice to Seneca on what to do about Katniss. That seems like a scene that was written specifically just to give Donald Sutherland more screen time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Similarly, I mean, it achieves some other effect, but him hanging out with his family in this one didn't seem... It was a little less useless seeming, but if it had been cut, it wouldn't have been that big a deal.
I was gonna say, maybe that instead of him pushing for it, maybe they just wanted to give him more screen time. Just like, hey, look, we got Donald Sutherland. Like, we got, real
No one
big
believes that.
actors. I don't know.
I'm basing my entire opinion of Donald Sutherland on the filming of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, in which basically, because there was nobody who was sort of like a bigger star than Sutherland on set, he just like would tell the director and the writer what to do, and didn't care, and like tried to make the movie like really serious, which is the exact opposite direction that it needed to go, and so it was really awful. I blame everything that goes wrong in any movie with Donald Sutherland, including movies he's not in.
Oh, why do you hate Donald Sutherland so?
I just told you.
He ruined Buffy.
Because of that one incident. Because of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. But then you got the TV show.
Also, he's a bad actor. He's a bad actor too, and he's really smug.
I don't think he's that bad.
I do. I much prefer Kiefer. I'm glad that he made Kiefer. Kiefer's fun.
Good job having sex, Donald.
I mostly want to take about the books.
I've said this before, but I really wish that they had been able to get James Spader to play President Snow, because especially since he's had all that plastic surgery on his face, he looks very frightening, and very much the way that I would imagine President Snow is described in the book. Like, because I don't know, there's less emphasis in the movies for, I guess, obvious reasons, but in the book there's a lot of emphasis on like everyone in the Capitol having really creepy plastic surgery that makes them look not real human beings anymore, and that's how I feel James Spader looks compared to how he used to look. Also, I just like him better as an actor. He can be creepy without being as over the top about it.
Overt, yeah.
I liked James Spader in Crash.
I liked James Spader in The Office. He was one of the only good parts of his later seasons.
I was a little confused by what exactly the plan was for I guess you're supposed to be at this point, like what the plan was to get Katniss out of the games. I couldn't really figure out what was going, because I knew something weird was happening when that one girl just like jumps out of a tree and gets killed by the baboons to save Senna.
Save Peeta.
Peeta. All those names that went with A. I can't remember them all. To save Peeta.
Peeta bread.
He's bread, yeah.
Peeta chips.
to save bread. To save egg.
The baker's boy.
To save bread. But no, I was like, okay, so are they trying to...
I don't remember if that was in the book.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's like when Katniss first starts to like feel like there's something weird going on that she's not getting.
Yeah, that's the way I felt too.
In the book,
like,
doesn't one of the
weird.
Morphlings kill themselves?
I don't remember.
I thought that one of the victors kills themselves as soon as they go up into the games because they didn't want to participate.
Yeah, I think that sounds familiar now. But let's continue to speculate about things we don't remember.
Which is kind of sad because I read these books like 3 months ago.
Yeah,
They should still be really fresh.
It's been about 1.5 years for me, so a little longer.
Yeah, so the plan is, I think it's Haymitch and Plutarch's plan. There might have been other people involved, but... So I guess Plutarch has always been part of the growing rebellion, but he hasn't revealed that he's part of it yet, and he intentionally, I guess, maneuvers himself to be the headmaster of these games, so that he can save Katniss, and that's pretty much everyone except for Peeta and Katniss knows the plan. Except for probably the victors from like 1, 2, and 4, who are just there to kill people again.
Right. They cannot be trusted.
Yeah, but almost every other district. I think those are the 3 districts that are like most loyal to the capital, if I remember correctly, are 1, 2, and 4. All the other districts are working together to keep Katniss alive, / bring down the force field.
So that they can fly that ship in.
Yeah, so that they can get her. And they are all willing to die for that plan / belief from the beginning. I assume it was Volt's plan to
break this.
To like, because it's his wire and his force field. So he probably, Plutarch put the force field in there intentionally because he knew Volt would know how to take it down.
And the wire too, presumably.
Yeah.
I thought that was actually another pretty big improvement from the first movie to the second, is that one of the things that I find really interesting about the books is that it's like this huge revolutionary type thing going on, but because the books are told from a first person perspective, we're only getting small glimpses of it for most of it. And I thought that the first movie like deviated too much from that and was showing way too much outside her perspective that made it less interesting to me, and that the second movie did a good job of reining that in, not completely, but more so than the first movie, and kind of keeping the audience as much in the dark as Katniss herself, which I guess ties them closer to her emotionally, at least for me.
Wesley Morris, reviewer of Grantland, said that scene in District 11 made him think about the Black Power Revolution.
In a positive way?
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I really like that scene too. Like that scene is definitely my favorite part of the movie in terms of how emotionally affecting it was, which is nice because I thought that the handling of Rue somehow in the first movie was really cheesy and didn't get to me at all compared to how it affected me in the book, and was one of the things that made me really upset when watching it, that they bungled it so bad, in my opinion. And so there's a little bit of...
I will agree with you on that. I didn't feel that connection as strongly in the movie. When I was watching it, I was like, oh, she died. That's kind of sad, but it's not like I didn't feel like they had been together for long enough for her to be that sad about it. I think it was a problem of time. Like, if they had gotten to spend a little bit more time together, it would have been more sad. But, when I don't know how they did it, but they managed to... I think it was maybe just Jennifer Lawrence's acting. Like, when she saw when she sees the big thing of Rue up there, like, I just got that sense from her immediately. I was like, okay, she is really torn up inside about this. And it was really like, oh man, that hit me really hard.
In the first movie, it did kind of work for me, just because I remember, like, very specifically, like, not her, like, mourning, but, like, when she's standing over Rue's dead body, and the guy comes running up, and she just, like, shoots him with the bow, like, really quickly, and kills him. A guy is running up to kill Katniss, because Rue has announced their presence, and I remember that moment, like, very hard, because up until that point, she had never sort of killed someone with her own hand. Like, she had cut off the tree branch, to knock the hornets down on them, and then run away. But they all could have escaped, all the other people. She was just, that was the first time that she killed someone, and to me it sort of drove home Rue's importance to her, that, like, she wasn't going to run, she wasn't going to leave Rue there, she was going to, experience her mourning, that she would become a murderer.
To do so.
In order, to do so. But even in the books, to me, I can't remember if his name was Thresh or Thrash, the other tribute from District 11.
Thresh, with an E.
Yeah, deciding not to kill her was actually a bigger moment for me, and a more bungled one in the movie. Although I'm glad they didn't have him talk weird in the movie, like they did in the book.
Right.
He talks weird?
He's very uneducated.
Oh.
And so he talks very poorly in, the book, and it's just a little weird. It's like right on the border of being racist.
Yeah.
It's like getting real close.
It's like Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Well, it's, they come from, like, all they do is, like, farm all the time, I guess. There's, like, no school in that district.
Yeah.
So
supposed
it
to-
makes logical sense, but it's still kind of
It's
weird.
supposed to be the South, isn't it? It's supposed to be District
Yeah, the
11.
idea for sure. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, that yeah, but that definitely they brought that back better. I don't know. I don't know why. Sometimes when like big events like that get brought back in series, I feel like the impact is still there, and they can play that impact up more after the actual event happens. Because sometimes when the event happens, you're just like, I don't really understand the significance of that at this point. But once you start to see it, instances of the significance more and more, it's like, something that maybe happens at the beginning of a television series that at the time you're like, oh, well, that was just, kind of like a dramatic TV thing. But later on, when you start to see the significance of it brought back more and more, you get kind of a mythology of that built up in your own. And so I think I thought they did a good job of that in the second.
Yeah, I also think that it's a more interesting and dynamically layered scene as far as like there being expectation for how Katniss is supposed to act and the possible ramifications of her not acting that way, and then her being so overcome with emotion that she can't like follow the orders makes it really impactful as a scene. It works really well in the movie.
Yeah.
It sort of actually gets to unintentionally something later in the books that'll be in the other movies, which is trying to like get Katniss to be authentic in order to be her most inspiring, that she's really bad at being fake. And when she tries to fake things, she's really, terrible. In the later books, that's stressed a lot. But yeah, there's kind of like in that scene, the president and the council, or the president and the Capitol are watching her, and they have a certain expectation. But then Rue's family is there as well, and they're also watching her, and they have a certain expectation. And I don't know. We get so little of Peeta really in the first movie, and because Josh Hutcherson isn't a good enough actor to like really layer him in the little amount of time that he does, I'm glad that we get so much more of him in this one, because even though Hutcherson isn't great, just all the combination of scenes, you start to get a sense of who Peeta is as a person, like him offering some of the winnings to the families of the dead victors, and the painting of Rue, and volunteering in place of Haymitch, stuff like that.
Yeah, I liked him a lot more in this one.
I mean, in the books, when it turns out that he's been captured, I was devastated. I was like, no! I was like, take Katniss! Give me back Peeta!
Yeah, I was also happy that, what was his name, Fennig? What district was he from?
7?
I think it's 6.
Oh.
6 or 7. I don't know, it's the boating district.
Okay.
Fishing.
Yeah,
That's why he's so good in the water.
Yeah, I really liked that he became a good character and he wasn't like a villain character. Cause I thought that scene where he comes up to Katniss and is like kind of hitting on her a little bit, where he's got the
Totally
sugar
hitting
cube,
on her.
and I was like, well, you think hitting on her, but it turns out like later he's just not even interested in her, but he's just got that little sugar cube, and he's like, you need to enjoy the sweet things, and I was like, what a weird, creepy character. And then he turns out to be a good guy, and I was like, he's a good guy? That's awesome. He's like a weird, creepy good guy.
There's actually a lot of those in these series. There's no one like Katniss and Peeta are probably the closest to being like genuinely, maybe not even really Katniss. Peeta and Prim are kind of like the only genuinely good people. I just talking about Peeta reminded me of something that again I like about the books, and it's kind of clear but not super clear in the movie. So you start to get this developing romantic triangle in the end of the first movie, and a lot in the second book and movie between Gale and Peeta and Katniss. And I like that they've got sort of two romantic pursuit paths being presented. Like normally in a romantic triangle, like so for instance in Twilight, as one example, there's just the one who's like clearly the person that she's in love with, and it's not influenced at all by how they pursue her. Like, she just loves Edward and she doesn't love Jacob that way. And then the other usually typical sort of romantic triangle is that you have a jerk and a good guy, and the plot is her realizing that she shouldn't be with the jerk.
Right.
That person's a jerk. And it's not really, neither Gale nor Peeta are exactly jerks. They're both just taking sort of two different pursuits towards her affections. Gale in the more typically masculine way, like, he takes her and kisses her. He tells her that he wants to run away with her, that, that's in the first movie. But she brings it back in this second movie. And he's not willing to do it now because she wants to bring Peeta along.
Mm-hmm.
I bet Peeta would have been willing to do it with Gale along. I think Peeta more legitimately wants Katniss to be happy, whereas Gale wants her for himself. And then Peeta is the more, subdued approach. Like, he's told her his feelings, but he's more interested in actually getting to know her than having her. So he talks to her, like, he wants to know what's going on with her because he's really intrigued by her. And he doesn't, push things. She invites him to sleep in her bed, which is sort of a longer, bigger thing in the books. Like, they're not getting along when they start that trip at all in the books. And then slowly they become closer, and then she wants him to sleep in her bed. And then there's like a thing later where she is like, she's really upset that she's no longer sharing her bed with him. They're not having sex, by the way. I don't know if that was, but it's pretty clear in the books that they're not having sex. That they're just sleeping together.
It was never implied in the movie.
Yeah. So, and I like that the movie keeps that element of the books, and that it's there, that you've got these sort of two different, you can tell from how I'm talking about it which one I prefer, but I don't think but that's me. I don't think the movie or the books portray one as necessarily better. It's just these two guys, they both like Katniss, they're both pursuing, and I think it's really good that it does that because it presents it as being her choice, as her figuring out which thing she likes and wants, and, what will be good for her, if either. Because it's not necessarily clear that she's going to end up with either of them, both in the books and in the movies. So there's a romantic element to it, but it doesn't feel like she has to end up with somebody or that there's a correct choice. That's really the strength of the books overall, is that no like real clear moral correct choices for most decisions, that everything is sort of gray and has pros and cons to it, except for the killing of children. That's really obviously negative.
Yeah. I think we can all agree.
And the exploitation of poor people.
Yeah, that too. Those are the qualities of the ultimate evil in the book, I guess.
In the books, like, sort of everything is kind of gray except for the president, who is, a straight black hat with like a twirling mustache.
Yeah, literally a twirling mustache in the movie.
Yeah, the beard is. I feel like, that's again just like part of Donald Sutherland. Like, I wonder if they asked him to shave, and he's like, "I'm not doing that."
Nope.
I don't like him.
Just grew his mustache out longer in response. And he just smiles evilly at them. They see him.
I actually thought Philip Seymour Hoffman was okay.
Hear some barking dog in this podcast.
5 out of 5 licorices agree.
I actually thought Philip Seymour Hoffman was alright in this movie, although I still feel as though he only does the one kind of acting, and that kind of acting doesn't really fit with how almost everyone else is acting, which is that he has that kind of like mealy mouthed, like mumbly delivery that he always does, and that most of the other acting is more of a like action genre-y style of acting. Even when it's good, it's kind of like more melodramatic a little bit. But
Yeah, I would say that I kind of like that because it kind of differentiates him from everybody else. Like it seems like it's a lot harder to figure out what he's thinking all the time. Like he seems kind of a mystery from everybody else. Because everybody else, you can kind of tell where their emotions are going most of the time. But with him, you're like, oh,
Sorry about that.
I don't know if this guy's good or bad. I can't tell. Especially in that scene where he dances with Katniss. I'm like, is he threatening her or is he encouraging her? I can't tell. Is he, is he with the president or is he not? I honestly couldn't tell right up until the end. And I was like, oh, okay, he's in on it too. That makes sense.
yeah, I like the ambiguity of it, but I still think that, I don't know, I mean, again, it could just be my personal preference for the fact that I don't know. I don't like the way that he talks. He's a weird... he's a weird, just like...
Kind of sounds like he has like a bunch of saliva in his mouth.
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't know what you guys were talking about after I went to the door, but I heard you say that, he always plays the same thing. And this is off topic, but it seems like most actors, sort of have like one role that they play with like little variations. It's very rare to get, I guess, the Meryl Streep type who plays like a lot of very different types of people, and yet for some reason there are a lot of actors who are criticized for doing that one role, even though it's very popular. Like Jack Nicholson is extremely popular for essentially playing one role for like 50 years. And then people who I like Keanu Reeves and Kristen Stewart have basically played one role, but they're dismissed for doing that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have anything against Philip Seymour Hoffman for playing that one character. It was more that I felt that character didn't fit as well with the style of acting that kind of dominates the rest of the movie, that he has that more like subdued way of presenting himself that's more matter of fact and less like emotional, and that was an odd contrast compared to everyone else.
And so when we were talking about acting, you forgot to mention that Stanley Tucci was also perfectly cast in the first one. I really enjoy him in all the movies.
Yeah, I like him in both. I've heard people talk about not liking him, and I always don't get it. Like, Doug Benson on his podcast is always like, what's Stanley Tucci even doing? And I'm like, being awesome? What are you talking about?
He's Tucci Man.
Tucci Bandera. He's perfect because he's so facile and superficial. I love it.
That weird smile, like so creepy.
That fucking smile is perfect. I was like, oh, he's got that so down. He's enjoying himself too. I also like Toby Jones when he shows up very briefly as like his sidekick in both movies. His like sidekick announcing guy.
I don't even know who that guy is, but yeah, I like him too.
I like Toby Jones in general.
He played Truman Capote in the other Truman Capote movie. That wasn't the Philip Seymour Hoffman one.
So we've got both Truman Capotes in this movie.
One movie. Why didn't they sell that more?
Yeah, now twice the Truman Capote. So when I saw Lenny Kravitz's name in the credits for the first one, and then even again in the second one, I was like, that can't be Lenny Kravitz because he's pretty decent. I hate Lenny Kravitz as a musician. I guess it makes sense that he might be talented at something else. But I was kind of normally with a casting like that, it's complete a gimmick or whatever. But he's really subdued in a nice way.
I will say his mother was an actress, so he's probably been around acting for a lot of his life and picked up a thing or two here.
And also,
who's his mother?
Performing is just
She was, I don't remember which character she was, but she was on The Jeffersons. I don't know if you remember the racial draft from Chappelle's Show but they actually talk about that. You know, like his mother was an actress on The Jeffersons, and his father was a lawyer. You can't make that up.
You were saying about performing, Basil?
Oh, no, just that, like getting on stage and performing as a musician is in a way some kind of acting. So I feel like musicians have at least a little bit of an in, if as far as acting is concerned.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of terrible ones.
That's true. A lot of people do not seem to be able to translate that skill to other mediums.
Like Madonna.
Or Megger.
Not a good actress. I'd have to think about it for a second, but I think Ludacris might be my favorite musician turned actor.
He's pretty great.
Ludacris. Oh, man.
And he's even played two different roles. I mean, they're kind of two sides of the same coin, but like his role in The Fast and the Furious is different than his role in Hustle and Flow.
Yep, that's true. And different than his role in the Paul Haggis Crash.
I still have not seen that. In life, I never will.
Imagine if you met the perfect girl and you loved everything about her except for that her favorite movie was Crash. And she watched it like twice a year and made you watch it with her.
It seems hard to imagine that the perfect girl would love that movie.
It's just like her one blind spot.
Like she has really smart, progressive ideas about things other than that.
Yep.
Just doesn't understand.
She works for a non-profit fighting for social equality, but then loves Crash.
I hadn't really, this is totally off topic, but there was a very awkward moment where I was taking this art class, and in the same room right beforehand was a film class, and my art professor and I were talking, trying to figure out what the movie was because it was going on long and we could like see through the door, and we figured out it was the Crash, and the professor was talking about how great it was to both of us, and neither of us had seen it, but probably for the same reason. So it was weird to just be with my art professor being like, yeah, sounds good. Like just trying to be polite about a movie that we had actively avoided seeing on purpose.
It's probably, even though I also haven't seen it, one of the bigger fights that I got into with my mom when I told her that I didn't want to see it, and then it sounded super racist to me. And she was like, no, it's against racism. And I'm like, yeah, but it fails miserably. Oops. Back when I was more of a dick about my movie opinions.
Those are the days.
Yeah.
Speaking of being a dick, I didn't like Jenna Malone very much in this movie. She was actually one of the things that dragged me down about it. I don't like her as an actress in general, but...
I don't like her either, but I liked her in this. Maybe because it's easy to play crazy and convince me.
Yeah.
Crazy, sexy.
I just have to say, I laughed so hard at that scene where she strips naked in the elevator. Like, not at her, but at the reactions of everybody else in the elevator. Like, Jennifer Lawrence's face when she did that, it was just, she was just like, she had this, like, most disgusted look, and she was just, like, looking over to the side like this, this bitch is nuts. I was like, that is awesome. And then Peeta just, like, wanting to look away, but, like, you know, like, catching glimpses, and then Haymitch just being like, it's just like everybody's reactions were perfect. And I was like, this scene is awesome. Is this in the book?
It sure is.
No. It is?
Yeah. I mean, well, I was wondering how they were going to do it, because actually in the books, it's sort of like a big deal because like Joanna spends most of her time at least topless, and I was like, how are they going to work this into a PG-13 movie? Like, she's just naked all the time.
Yeah.
But
she loves being naked.
Complaining about clothes.
That's really funny, though.
Yeah.
There's a character that complains about having to wear clothes.
And,
I think Katniss's reaction, by the way, is that she's like really intimidated by sex still, and not like thinking about it.
It was just Jennifer Lawrence. I just look at her and it's like, this bitch is crazy.
Moving away from that slightly, I did want to bring up before we stop talking about everything completely, but the training room scenes were really cool. I thought that they did a very good job of emulating that in a way that they weren't able to do, probably mostly for budgetary reasons in the first movie. That the
CGI block people.
Yeah,
I
thought it was pretty
from
cool.
Rez.
They turned into blocks.
They look like the character from Rez.
Yeah, Francis Lawrence has played some video games.
Res or Super Smash Brothers or something. One of that. Which Smash? I think that was
They
Melee.
put up on Monster.com, application for director of Hunger Games 2 and 3, and under experience required to put video games. Spielberg was like, fuck.
Did not direct Seabiscuit.
Aww.
Poor Gary Ross.
Yeah, but he directed Pleasantville, which has like sort of a weirdly similar theme.
Yeah, but
about one woman sort of like bringing color to an entirely dark world.
in a very transparent way. I remember seeing
in Pleasantville, it's very transparent, and in Hunger Games, less so.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I remember like seeing Pleasantville when I was like 14 and thinking it was so like edgy and deep. Like, see, it says no color. It's a metaphor. Get it? So smart.
See, I remember maybe Pleasantville being like the marker of me like being able to like start thinking about films, because I saw it and I was like, this is so obvious. You got to be more complex than this to interest Reuben. You got to be at least as complex as Bring It On.
I have not seen all of Pleasantville.
So you absolutely shouldn't.
Scattered scenes.
You could just watch that weird music video that Paul Thomas Anderson directed, Fiona Apple instead. Have you seen that?
No.
No.
She did a cover of that Beatles song.
Across the Universe?
Yeah, and she did it specifically for that movie. And Paul Thomas Anderson and her were dating at the time, so he directed the video for it. It's not that great either, but it's certainly better than Pleasantville, because as many problems as I have with Paul Thomas Anderson, he's definitely a better filmmaker than Gary Ross.
Curious, does anybody know what else Francis Lawrence has done?
I Am Legend.
Which is
right.
terrible.
You said that
So I was
at the
surprised that I liked this movie as much
Yeah,
as I did.
I
because-
hated I Am Legend.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the worst movies that I saw the year it came out.
Is that it? Is that all he's directed?
He's a music video director before that, so he's done a lot of commercial work and whatnot.
I see.
Um,
I don't have my second computer up, so I can't
Right.
IMDb everything today.
I wonder...
I'm just flying blind. Just throwing random facts up there. I don't know if they're true.
I'll look it up. I think he's directed a couple other actors.
He directed Swing Vote. Sure.
Oh, he also did Water for Elephant.
Haven't seen it.
Oh, he looks like sort of an older, creepier Bradley...
Cooper.
What's his name?
Cooper?
Yeah, Bradley Cooper.
Manning?
No. Not
Sean,
Manning.
Sean Bradley.
Constantine.
Oh.
Bradley Constantine?
He's probably most
No, he
famous
directed-
for directing...
He directed Constantine.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'd say the most famous thing that he's done is probably the Britney Spears I'm a Slave for You video, which is pretty infamous for being super sexual. Oh, they're doing the
He
same...
made some IMDb users top 100 directors of all time, even though he's only made 4 movies.
Someone really likes Water for Elephant.
He's the Tarkovsky of something. I don't know.
Oh, it looks like they're doing the same thing for Hunger Games as everything else now, where the third movie will actually be 2 movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which doesn't really make sense to me, based on having read the book. Probably the book with the most in it is the first one, but oh well.
Yeah, I think that actually would have maybe been better, at least for me, because I felt that the brevity of all the scenes was really what hurt the first movie for me, that they didn't have enough time to develop the emotional arc that I think that the book take.
I don't think that
It's too bad you can't spend like $1 billion on a TV show, because it would have been better as a TV show.
Yeah, it would have been. This definitely would have been a great TV show.
What did you say, Patrick?
I said this would have been a great TV show. Should have done that instead of making movies.
I always thought Harry Potter would have been a much better TV show.
It would have been.
I always thought Harry Potter would have been a much better nothing. Like if
You
it
don't
had
like
just
Harry?
not been made, it would have been better.
You don't like Harry Potter?
I liked Harry Potter when it came out, and I read all the books, and then somewhere around age 22, 23, I stopped liking it. And especially now in read the Hunger Games, like just comparing and contrasting the two, Hunger Games is just like it wipes the floor with it.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think
Like Harry
definitely
Potter is like
prefer
what
it.
I was saying about Pleasantville. It's sort of like everything is like really on the surface, and everyone is like clearly good or evil. It's like good people mess up, but they're never like, they don't know what decision to make, and they're not like, scarred for life
Mhm.
based on their decisions. It's kind of like, if you're good, if you're Dumbledore, you make the right decision most of the time, and if you make the wrong decision, it was like an accident or you were lied to or something, and you're never like really torn as to what decision to make. Like, if you are torn, it's because you're being momentarily selfish. It's like really clear what decision you should make.
And you just didn't do it. Just like real life.
I can see that. Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't ever read the second book because I lost interest in the book series around that time. I don't know why. It was just like, yeah, I'm not really into it. Not really into going through that again.
Rio and I had a very long conversation about how much better Hunger Games is than Harry Potter
Nice.
at Rachel's housewarming party.
Yeah, I definitely like Potter. That's for sure. And I actually like Hunger Games better than Battle Royale now, too. I was a big Battle Royale fan, but once I saw that, I like what they do with
What
the
about
world.
Battle Royale with cheese?
Yes, better than Battle Royale with cheese. No, because that was my initial impression. Like, a lot of people on the internet was like, hey, I've seen this before. Kids killing kids, it's Battle Royale, right? But they do such a better job of, like, creating a world around the games in Hunger Games. Like, it's more about that world than it is about the games themselves. And Battle Royale, it's just like, hey, kids killing kids, that's kind of edgy, cool, right? But with Hunger Games, it's like, we're building a world and we're trying to say something about, modern society as well, while we're telling you a story about characters who are, dealing with this fictionalized world. I like the world building in Hunger Games 100% more than anything that's in Battle Royale. The original novel, and I also liked what was in the second Hunger Games, like the actual games, too, than a lot of things that were in Battle Royale. So, like, I thought the whole setup was
Like
really
crazy
cool.
balloons?
The big clock and with the fog that just turns you into a boil monster and mandrills attacking you from every direction.
That fog was pretty awesome. I was pretty into that.
I was like, what's this? The boils on her hand. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's genius.
Looks so gross.
Poison
So
fog.
gross.
It was so gross. It looked so painful too. Like I could in my mind imagine exactly what kind of pain it was causing them too, because it's just like that. When you have like a blister, it's like that kind of pain, but amplified.
Speaking of that scene, they should have had, like, Mags doesn't scream when she walks into the fog. They should have had her scream to make her death more painful and, like, real. She just, like, walks into the fog and disappears.
Yeah, that's why I was like, does she have some sort of special ability that protects her from the fog? We're gonna see her later? I didn't
No.
understand. I was like, is
She's
she
dead.
really gone? Does she scream in the book?
I think so.
No.
At least make some
Sure,
kind of
that's cool.
sound, I think. Because she can't actually, she doesn't have a tongue, so she can't talk. But,
Oh, yeah. I think you can still scream if you don't have a tongue.
yeah. But her,
It's just incoherent.
that was definitely one of the parts that, I guess just for the sake of time, but I didn't feel like, compared to the book, the relationship between Finnick and Mags was developed as well, because I remember it being a pretty interesting and touching part that made Finnick a more interesting and well-rounded character, and then Mags also seemed more useful. I think again it was on Doug Benson's thing. He was like, why is he carting her around? Why didn't he just kill her because she's gonna die anyway? And I could sort of understand how someone might not really feel the emotional connection that's supposed to be there, that was more developed in the books.
If I remember in the books, and I really don't understand why they changed this, for the other changes from the book to the movie I understood, but if I'm remembering correctly, I don't understand why they changed this, because it works a lot better, is that Peeta has been hurt from the force field, and when the fog starts coming, Finnick is carrying Peeta, because Peeta is still not up to full strength, and Katniss is carrying Mags. And in the movie, Finnick is carrying Mags, and Katniss and Peeta are running together. And then I think Peeta gets hurt by the fog again, and then Finnick picks him up, and then Mags walks into the fog. But in the book, they fall over or something, or Katniss is she's I can't carry Mags any further, and Mags just jumps off her back and walks into the fog, and like Finnick is like far away, so like he can't stop her, you know, he can't do anything, he can't try to save her because he's like not the one that is carrying her. And something about that was like more emotional too, that like he's not right there with her, and that like, you know, it also ties back to sort of Katniss's reservations about the two of them, you know, that she's trying to save Mags and then she like gets tired and there's like sort of no hesitation on Mags's part, she just jumps off and walks into the fog.
Yeah, I think that like I found that scene to be pretty affecting because in the book at least, Mags is sort of another part of Katniss's development into not only caring about herself, is that, you know, in the Katniss from the original book would be like see her as like an easy target, but or at least like someone that is easy to avoid and not worry about, and that Katniss developing a compassion for her. And everything is pretty interesting, and that there is, because I think that you're right, and I think that the kiss thing still happens, but she kisses Katniss goodbye, and that's interesting and sad, and I liked it. But I don't know why they changed things around.
I mean, the scene in the movie was still hugely affecting for me, but I don't know if it would have been if I hadn't read the book already. You know, when in the movie, like, I apologized to Joel and Patrick afterwards if I spoiled anything for them that they didn't know what I was talking about, and it was because I guess they were, you know, paying really close attention to the movies, but I was like freaking out every time something bad was about to happen on screen because I knew it was coming, you know. So like as soon as I saw the fog, I was like under my breath, like no.
Yeah, I didn't find the Mag scene that affecting in the movie, honestly. I was a little.
Bam! Control scenario proven.
Sorry, yeah, I'm the control group. I have not read the books, so I did not find it that affecting.
I think that something that makes the entire movie even less affecting is that when I went to see with Betsy, she actually hadn't even seen the first movie, and she was like, "I don't understand any of this," and she really hated the movie, and I was like, I guess maybe I could see how you would have trouble connecting with any of the characters. It is very much like, even as far as like sequels go, it's like completely unable to like separate itself as like its own movie.
I actually kind of like that about this movie, because like so many sequels waste like 30 minutes of their runtime, like making sure that it can be sort of a standalone movie, and then also be a sequel, and It's like, don't do that. Because, you know, I understand that you feel like you're pleasing the most people that way, but you're not. What you're doing is you're not completely pissing off the people who already saw the first movie, which is most of them.
Right.
They're not as pleased as they could have been, and then you're still not really satisfying the people who didn't see the first movie. No books do that. No books write a second book and are just like, the first like 5 chapters are just catching you up on what happened. You know, if it references stuff that happened earlier, it's because it has to for that book. I don't know.
I agree.
I feel like this one sort of went into it, and it's like you had some like flashbacks and stuff, but the flashbacks served a necessary purpose. You know, like her flashing back to killing that guy, what showed you that she was suffering from PTSD. It wasn't like summing up the story.
I agree.
So
I mean, it wasn't a problem for me. I just felt bad that I invited her.
Poor Betsy. Tell her to read the books. The books are good.
Yeah, we're at an hour and 16 minutes now on the podcast.
Should we wrap it up? Are we done talking? Do
we wanna keep talking about anything else, or?
I mean, I could keep talking about the books. I don't know again how much like, and for me, like when so. Yeah, I told this to Basil. So I watched the first movie and I thought it was okay. And then, you know, this was when I was in New York and bored and sad. And so I watched it again and I liked it slightly better. And then later on, when I got home, I read the first book because I liked the movie. And Katie lent it to me when I went to Canada. And I read it really quickly. And, you know, normally like, when you have like the book movie, like most people's responses is to sort of be like, here's where this one works and here's where that one didn't work. But for some reason, these books and movies have just sort of combined for me. I'm like, I like all of them better, having experienced all of it. It's like, you know, yeah, the first movie and the second movie and the first book and the second book are missing out on things. None of them are perfect, but they all work together. It's like, I know, because I read the books, I know Mags's relationship. She's meaningful to me as a character in the movie. And then, you know, the visual representation of seeing her walk into the fog is more impactful for me than reading it as words on a page. So it's like they combined into one better experience. So I just like all of them now, and I hope it continues for the third and fourth one.
I'm nervous that they'll do too much pulling back, because I think the third book is actually my favorite in the series, and that part of the reason is, again, the subjectivity of it. And I feel like there'll be a very strong temptation to give more context to people, and I hope that they resist that to some extent. But
yeah, there shouldn't be any like big battle scenes, but there probably will be.
I think your trick really updated to have a big battle scene in the last movie. I think every last movie has to have a big battle scene.
I mean, there's like a little exploring party at one part that's like going through, and like they have like intense fights and stuff, and I think that's good. They should have that. But like there's, you know, in the background of the third book, like off screen, you would say, there's a giant revolution going on, and you don't get to see too much of that in the book. And I just hope they don't have, like, you know, a Saving Private Ryan scene in either of the Mockingjay. That's all I'm saying. Because I mean, there's still like war. Like, you still get to see some war. Like, you get to see, you know.
One of the things about the third book that made me really satisfied was like a complaint that I've had with like almost every video game that I've played in the last like 5 or 6 years, which is that like you're always like the center of some huge conflict. And I was like, why can't I just be like a guy? Like there's like that Call of Duty game, Modern Warfare, the very first one, and like you're trying to stop these terrorists from shooting these nukes. In the very last level, you finally do it, and you're just like some sergeant or like corporal or like fairly low level guy. But like when it comes time to like stop the nukes, for some reason the captain's like, hey, you go push the button, instead of like him just doing it because he's the one in charge. Like I was like, why am I pushing the button? I'm nobody.
Because that's why people play video games.
Yeah, but
because they are nobody in real life. They
Is
want to
that
be
the,
the
is that
guy
the
who
one
stops
with
the
Ramirez,
news.
where he tells Ramirez to do everything? I remember that being a meme at one point.
oh, probably.
Ramirez, do everything. Ramirez, destroy that tank with your knife.
But that was one of the reasons why I decided not to play video games anymore, is that like there's huge things going on, and for some reason one person is like the centerpiece to every single battle in every war, and like single-handedly responsible for saving all of everything. And I'm like, can't I just be like a regular person who's like pretty important but doesn't have to do everything? Just like feel a little more like a real thing. And that was handled very well in the Hunger Games series, as like Katniss being very central and yet also missing out on a lot of the stuff that's going on because she's just one person, which is what happens.
Yep. And her final mission isn't even really that important.
Right. Spoiler. Sorry, Patrick.
Stop spoiling everything for me.
I mean, it's personally important, but it's not like it's gonna end the war. I don't know.
Spoiling life for me.
Ruining it.
You're using, like, I
Yeah,
agree with you,
spoiler.
but you're using words that I would not use. Talking about the third book, like favorite. I mean, it's the best, but it was devastating to me. So it's not my favorite anything.
Stop.
No.
It's
Shut
satisfying.
up.
Again, I wasn't satisfied. I was just sort of like,
Not listening to you. But I'm gonna have to edit this when we were. I have to edit this anyway, so it's
I mean,
not listening right now.
Is any of this really surprising, Patrick? Like,
Shh.
I mean, I haven't said anything specific. It's sad.
All right. Well, see y'all later. Bye.
Just kidding. This is the happy war.
That's our show. That's our show for this week.
they declare revolution. They declare revolution, and then everyone's like, okay, we don't want to fight. So, and then they just agree to all of the revolution's demands, and everyone's happy.
Just like the
Nothing
French
bad
Revolution.
Yeah.
That's how it worked then. Marie Antoinette was like, oh, You guys are unhappy? Let's fix that.
She just baked them a bunch of cake.
Oh, Frenchies.
I really like Jennifer Lawrence.
She's hot. I saw her with short hair in an interview, and it looked really hot. And I was like, yes, she can pull off any
She's
look.
attractive. She's weird too. I like people who are weird. She was on The Daily Show doing an interview, and she was like super uncomfortable and didn't try to play it like she wasn't uncomfortable. I like that. She was like, this is uncomfortable. This is weird. I don't like this. That's when I started to dislike Alison Bray, is that she was clearly uncomfortable once, and she was like, I'm having fun with it. I'm like, don't be fake.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it was Aubrey Plaza on Letterman or something like that, and she was very clearly like super nervous and didn't really try to pretend that it wasn't like a really weird experience to be on national TV, like live, or not exactly live, but more live than just saying scripted lines on the set.
Aubrey Plaza rules.
Yeah, that made me like her a lot more. And also, she was clearly dressed in a way that made her uncomfortable, having to wear like some kind of evening gown looking outfit.
That's what she always wears.
Right.
To the
There's
store.
some like GQ video of Aubrey Plaza or whatever, and you know, I hate the fact that she's like a professional comedian and actress who has to do that stuff, but the beginning of the video begins with like them asking her like what her perfect date is, and she's like, well, the guy shows up and he's like, hey, you know, I don't really want to go out, I really just rather stay in and watch a movie. How does that sound? And I'm like, great. And he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go home, so have fun. Just like, that would be my perfect date. I'm like, oh yeah, Aubrey Plaza. Her date is to just not ever leave the house by herself.
Alright. Well, I think we've said everything there that we have to say about the Hunger Games Catching Fire motion picture, because we haven't talked about it for about, I don't know, 20 minutes now.
I said that I love Jennifer Lawrence.
That's vaguely related, I guess.
It's related enough.
Related, close enough. So
I think we nailed it on this one.
We punched it in the throat on this one.
Fist bump.
I'm really enjoying the theme song.
Reuben, sometimes I can't understand what you're saying, because all I hear is...
Hey, that's funny, 'cause it's happening for you too. I can't understand what you're saying, but I can understand everything Basil's saying.
It's because I got this fancy HD webcam with a special speaker on it and microphone,
Maybe.
so it makes my face look
Alright,
super white and then
Okay.
super dark.
so we're finished recording.
I'm pressing stop.
I will
Alright.
press stop right
Bye,
now.
everybody. Bye.
Thank you.